So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Matt Cheshire, who's CEO of the Needs Group. So, Matt, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if firstly you'd like to introduce yourself, the Needs Group, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
My name is Matt Cheshire. I'm CEO of the Needs Group, and the Needs Group is four different sort of companies under one roof.
Yep.
Artist Needs was the first part of the world 26 years ago, and it ultimately, as it says in the title, really is assisting artists of the music variety, may I add. We do get the odd request, see if we've got any paintbrushes in stock, but that's another story. But ultimately, it's looking after the music artists around the world. It's a worldwide support arm for the music industry. So that's what Artist Needs does.
Yep.
Aviation Needs is our private aviation arm of the company. Again, pretty much says what it is on the tin. It's private aviation. We fly humans and animals around the world. Some days more than others.
Well,
But ultimately, again, it can be anything from one passenger, two passengers, all the way up to hundreds with freight backline. If it's for the music industry, for the sports world, team charter, and we're carrying all their bibs, cones, balls, you name it.
well.
Aviation Needs is everything in the sky, and it's using private jets of all shapes and sizes, and helicopters, so fixed wing and rotary. We then have furniture needs, which again is pretty self-explanatory. What is furniture needs? Well, it's for all those music festivals that happen in the summer in the UK, and they say, "Oh, we need an ironing board. Oh, we need 1,000 towels for the stage, and we need a sofa, and we
Oh
need
my God.
some hair straighteners, and we need, 10 sets of knives and forks." Well, that's what we've got the warehouse in Leeds doing. It sits there all year round. I was fed up of hiring bits from here, bits from there, so I thought I'll buy it. So we have a warehouse full of all sorts of stuff. Some we have single items, and some we have lots into the thousands of towels, of bath towels and hand towels, and that's what furniture needs does.
Yep.
And then VIP needs is purely a brand, really, because I kept getting calls from non-musicians and sports personalities saying, "I'm not an artist, but I need you to help." Or so and so said you helped them. How do I sort a helicopter? Or how do I get you to get me a laptop? Or how do you help get to that restaurant? So it's very much a concierge side, but ultimately, from a brand point of view, everybody can be a VIP. So it
Yep.
just meant that we weren't shutting the door on anybody.
Yeah.
We can facilitate for all, and we do now. I mean, as I say, we have 7 Premier League clubs that we work very closely with, and do all their player A to Bs, as much as looking after big corporate brands that are in the house, that we would all recognise and know. Sometimes they ring me once a week, sometimes they ring me once a year. Doesn't matter. Ultimately, a plane's a plane, a laptop's a laptop, a towel's a towel. So depending on what you want and when you need it, then ultimately one of those four divisions will come running to your rescue.
Amazing. Well, I was saying before you started, I love doing this because you meet businesses where you just go, well, that's incredible. So,
Yeah.
could you tell us, I mean, maybe start telling us a bit about your background, how you got into business, and how you, why
Yeah,
this
so I
particular
guess
one?
how did it all begin? Well, 26 years ago, I went to Leeds College of Music. I guess in my head, I either wanted to do something sort of TV, radio, technical sort of line, and or be a pilot. I wrote to Air 2000 in my latter school years. Always tempted to go down the pilot route. Loved flying, loved anything to do with that. My father was hugely into aviation, so I guess that had rubbed off onto me. But I'd also loved technology. I'd loved programming, from getting lemmings to jump on an Amstrad computer through to, saving hours and hours of code that on a Commodore C64. Ultimately, I guess I wanted to go down either line.
Yeah.
Wasn't in any way, shape, or form academic. Was more the practical, hands-on. Still to this day, I didn't go to university, but went to Leeds College of Music because I wanted to basically go down the sound engineer route. Is what I sort of decided eventually, and to maybe do some form of aviation and private flying in the background, and to an extent, that's obviously now what's happened.
Yeah.
So I went to Leeds College of Music, and there were some shows that had come up in Leeds. One of the lectures, we had a guest speaker. A company from Leeds had come in to say, look, we want some people to help us during the week to build it, and I volunteered for that and thought, yeah, we'll give it a go. And the course that I did at Leeds College of Music was music management and sound production. So it was sort of a bit of management element, but it was a bit techie, but it was all very hands-on. And this was a BTEC national diploma, and and yeah, I guess it all stemmed from there. I just thought, hold on, there's a hole in the market here, and I did the shows early doors and thought, I really enjoyed it. We got paid £50 and drove around on golf carts, whizzing around, dropping artists off. And I thought, well, actually, yeah, there could be a business here.
Yeah.
What the hell am I going to do in the other sort of 6 months of the year when it's terrible weather in the UK? Maybe we can tour. Maybe I can go, globally on this. So that's where it all stemmed from. I left Leeds College of Music. I actually went to work for the BBC on a contract basis down in Southampton. It was live TV program, live every morning, 10 o'clock in the morning till 11, City Hospital. Running around A&E of Southampton General, seeing which sailor had chopped his fingers off overnight in the at sea and had been airlifted in or whatever, or Dave and Mary that had slipped on the ice. Literally, it could have been anything. But the bonus was, whilst it was at the time it was a slog. I was living between Leeds and York. Getting to Southampton wasn't particularly easy. There wasn't the megabus, but there was the National Express, and I literally went down on the National Express every week. Paid £15 a night for my bed and breakfast, and was up at 6 in the morning, cabling around the hospital, finding out from the doctors and nurses where we were going to do the live program from. And I was doing predominantly the audio, but there was a crossover with the cables for the cameras and things like that. So a very junior role, but it was money. It was a step in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
What it really meant, which I didn't realize at the time, was when we came off air at 11, there was occasionally an operation that they may want filming for use within the program
Right.
days after, which they then edited. But the reality was we were finished with work by 11, 12 midday. There's only so many times you can go to the pub and go, oh, that was a hard day. Bearing in mind there was still the afternoon and the evening to go. So we ended up collectively, a lot of the staff that were on that program, we would work at Meridian TV, which was ITV's arm in Southampton. And BBC South, we worked in the studios and we did all sorts of great programs, from music programs to sports programs. We covered all sorts because they filmed those in the afternoon and the evening. But also for me, it meant that I could do a lot of more of the festivals and the music sort of
Yep.
assistance work. So I sort of ran it as two roles, but it meant that I was getting my money from the morning, and then the afternoon I had a little bit of flexibility to either learn something or earn twice. So to fast forward on, that all came to an end. They decided to put the program into London. I didn't feel it was the right time for me to go to London. A lot of the staff were actually from the north, and a few people said, "Oh, Yorkshire TV might be recruiting.
Right.
We'll put your CV in." Didn't think much more of it, and got a call to say, "Hey, they're doing some recruiting. Do you fancy it?" Ended up working at Yorkshire TV again in an audio role, audio for a program. Well, it was for Boots, actually, the chemist. It was a program called Wellbeing that was live, and but we got to do all sorts of things. So we did that, but also Yorkshire was producing Countdown. We had Bullseye. We had Emmerdale, Where the Heart Is. All these programs, Frost. So there was drama going
Yeah.
on. There was entertainment programs going on, and then there was news at Calendar. And I ended up a few years on from there going into the news route. Chasing fire engines and police cars and covering some news stories, and ended up sort of working my way within that sort of world, the broadcast world, but also maintaining the music industry side of things,
Yeah.
which wasn't all year round, but was enough to keep my foot in the door, and to keep progressing with things really. And so, the two came together. I ended up taking redundancy from ITV, because I thought, brilliant, that's a cash injection to launch
Yep.
Artist Needs properly.
Yep.
I did that. 6 weeks, 9 weeks passed, and my boss rang, my old boss at Yorkshire rang and said, do you fancy a special projects? We want you to basically make non-techie people techie without them knowing. How do we get a journalist to film something without them thinking, oh, I can't do it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I ended up doing that, and I ended up doing digital newsroom bits, and again, lots of broadcast technology roles. But I think because I hadn't come the academic route, I probably wasn't all textbook. I was very hands-on, showing people, and it seemed to work quite well in the broadcast world. And ITN are still using some of my flyaway kits in war zones and jungles still today. So I loved my time there, and hopped in and out really to build up fund to launch Artist Needs properly,
Yep.
whilst having the stability of almost a proper job, really. And so there's only so many times you can leave a company and go back, and leave a company and go back, and take the redundancy. So I did it a couple of times. Still, a lot of good friends at Yorkshire TV, or ITV Yorkshire as it's now known. Obviously, lots of changes like there is in industry these days. They don't make the programs that they used to, unfortunately,
Yeah.
there. But still very good memories. But what it meant was it gave me a huge platform to financially give my company a good run for its money. And I ended up picking up some global touring with different artists. So my worry of only having 3 or 6 months worth of summer work ended up being all year round. And that was ultimately how Artist Needs was born. And still to this day, we work with the BBC, we work with ITV, we work with the broadcasters, not on a daily basis, but frequently, one-off big events. And whilst technology moves along, I guess you never forget. And I think it was good to really start at the bottom, hanging cables on drain hooks,
Yep. Yeah.
to now working with execs and CEOs of some of the largest companies in the world. And but you never forget your roots. And when people say to you, oh, you're doing all right. Well, I am, but I've been where you have, and I think there's a lot of respect that can be instantly given when people understand that you've actually done and been where they
Yes.
potentially are or have been.
Yes.
Um, and and to be totally honest, the other elements of the company, have sprouted from artist
Yeah.
needs. Like I touched on the furniture side, I was fed up of hiring in sofas from one company and chairs from another company and hair straighteners and blah blah blah. Yeah, right, let's just get it and pay for it once and we'll charge it
Yes.
out. So a lot of it has been organic growth really in our world. The aviation, I got a call from a footballer's agent to say, hey, we're looking at moving our player to the northeast. He's going to buy a helicopter. We hear you're using helicopters for music artists. And at the time, I was doing, we were doing flights for, Guns N' Roses and Elton John and, guys that were using, helicopters on a daily basis. And all of a sudden, he was like, "Well, if you guys need it on an evening, we need it during the day. Surely
Yes.
this is great. This is music to our ears. Can we make it work?" And we did, and that was sort of how Aviation Needs came about. We picked up our first club, and then the player moved. We picked up the second club, and then all of a sudden, the players then start ringing you saying, "Don't suppose you know where the helicopter is tomorrow, or I
Yeah.
don't suppose you know if how I would get to buy a racehorse in Paris or in Germany. How do I do that?" And a lot of it, still to this day is trust. It's nothing that I don't do anything that nobody else can't do. It's just a lot
Yeah.
of my things. It's a trust that we've built up with our
Yes.
client base over the years. And as I say, some people ring me what feels like every day of the week, wanting our assistance on things, and some people I hear from, sporadically once, twice a year. You really never know, and we've become a very, very sort of reactive, one-stop, 360 shop,
Yeah.
really. But if somebody trusts you, even if you can't do it, they trust who you're
Yes.
putting
Yes.
forward. And I
Yes.
think that, we can't do it all. People are like, well, where do you go next? Oh, well, I want an easier life, but that's probably not on the horizon too soon, because the reality is, the lifestyle of everybody is that we are, as humans now, we are time poor.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't really matter what sector you're in, and even if it's a sector that we help, when you speak to people, people haven't got enough time in their day now. They still, there's a lot of people that feel that there's that unbalance, really.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the work we do with business people is helping to get the time back because ultimately time's your greatest asset.
Yeah,
Once you run out of money, you can make some more, but once you run out of time, it's once you spend your time, it's gone forever. So
yeah,
it
yeah.
couldn't
Yeah,
agree more.
and I think we are fortunate and we're dealing with people that sometimes money isn't a problem, but sometimes, money is. We'll get a call to say, so and so is ill. Can we fly them back from a certain country? Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. Even if they're throwing all the money at it, if it's not safe to do so, we're not
Yes.
going to do it. And I think COVID for us was an interesting one. I mean, ultimately, the music industry froze.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't go to concerts weren't happening, we couldn't go to gigs in venues and things like that. So some artists locked themselves away in their recording studio and got to work with product that way. But for us, the music world really, really went quiet. And other than getting people back from where they were stuck, there wasn't a lot going on. For the millionaire, billionaire world that had never, if you think about it, a lot of the time, the biggest stumbling block is either time or money. And if
Yeah.
you've got both, or you can use money to buy you time,
Yeah.
all of a sudden pretty much every answer is yes along the way.
Yeah.
Well, COVID came along, and ultimately we were saying, we had calls from people saying, I need to go to America. Well, you can't. Well, if we pay more money, no, it's not a money thing. You cannot go there.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
flying people to the Caribbean. They were sat on a beach for a week before, they could then get into America. So we were working with them. And, these are big, investment bankers and traders and, people that are having, a big impact on our lives and the brands that we use on a day-to-day basis. Where it wasn't a money thing, but for the first time ever, they'd been told no.
Yeah.
And we see it even,
Yes.
we see it even now. We have clients in the Caribbean, and obviously what's just happened in Venezuela. Obviously, the airspace gets closed. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, the airports get closed. It doesn't matter whether you have a private jet. It doesn't matter whether you've got the money. If it's closed, it's closed. You cannot do it. It's so. I think there's an interesting angle now to the world and to what we have to sort of factor in sometimes. That even if you have everything, you still don't always
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
everything, just because of how things have now changed.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there just still are things that you physically can't do. I mean,
Yeah.
I won't get into this detail, but I mean, as you talk, I'm just thinking, how the hell do you charge for that sort of stuff? Because it's just like,
So we have, yeah, so we've got over 7,000 aircraft. We have a live system, air traffic control global system in-house. So I can see where every aircraft's going to and from. So if you said to me, I need to go from, I don't know, Leeds to Munich tomorrow, well, I'll see what we've got in Leeds that can do it. I'll see what's in Munich because again, we are environmentally conscious. We are now offsetting, and
yeah,
so the
brilliant.
flights that we do carbon offsets, and things that again, when we first started, this wasn't anything that we were even thinking about. But obviously, as times moved on, as technology, as we've become as humans aware of the planet on a more regular basis, everybody's got to do their part. And I think so we will look on the system and see, have we got anybody going over to Germany? Is there some, how can we pair it all up? Um, and again, it's like one big jigsaw, really.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant.
On Christmas Day, I had three people and a dog flying into Newcastle Airport because Leeds was closed and they wanted to see the family. It's fine, you can't fly your animal on British Airways or Jet2
Yeah,
or whatever. But since COVID, I can't tell you. Well, I should work it out in percentage terms, but I bet there's been 80 plus percent increase on pet movement
right.
because now people that are flying private are taking their dog or their cat, to their holiday home
Yeah,
or on holiday with them or whatever, or to their second property, or if they're going away for business for 6 months, then these are the sort of things that are now happening. Um, and commercial aircraft can't do it. We get asked a lot of the time, why don't they just take a commercial airline? Well, as we've all seen, a lot of the commercial routes have been chopped and have been reduced. Only this week we've seen considerable snowfall and
yes,
impact in Europe. That Schiphol Amsterdam Airport has gone into meltdown, literally with the way I think that over 3,000 flights to date have been cancelled.
right.
So we get a call for people that are, can we help? Of course we can. How do we fly there and KLM or BA not? Well, it's very simple. When it's your flight, you can dictate the time and
Yeah,
it's all about you. When it's a KLM flight or a British Airways
yeah,
flight full of 100 other people, everybody's got their own versions of what time they want to go, or, what is or isn't good enough. And Amsterdam might be shut, but we were then flying people to Rotterdam, for example, or Lelystad, or Antwerp, or Brussels, or because we've got that
yeah.
flexibility that those airports are still open, but the commercial airliners can't get in there, for example, because of operational reasons.
Absolutely. Now, this is obviously we're focusing on business in general, but I feel obliged to myself and to other people to ask, what's across all the businesses, what's the craziest request you ever had?
Um, I mean, obviously, from an artist needs point of view, we've all seen and read about, who wants, blue M&Ms and
I was
all.
going to say you're the blue Smarties man.
Absolutely. We have it, we've had people request people to stand next to them and be their chewing gum holder for when they want to take their chewing gum out before live on air. We've done that. We've done the skybox where my wife will tell you that, our skybox got wiped clean because a certain artist wanted to put their cricket on there, for example. So, every day is different, even in the artist world, the demands. What I would say is it's quite interesting that sometimes the people you think that are going to be the hardest are
Yes.
actually the easiest.
Yeah.
We had a client the other week, very wealthy family, and we offered them, like, 5 course fine dining on board with all sorts of things, and they came back and asked for bacon sandwiches. It isn't
Yeah.
sometimes people just want some home comforts because they get that fine
Yeah.
five-star dining day in day out, and sometimes that's all they want, really. The dog in the cabin, to read the paper and have their favorite drink and a bacon sandwich, or whatever it ends up being. But sometimes people get very enthralled in the sort of, oh, do they ask for this, do they ask for that? They do, but a lot of the time they want quite simple things that are in
Yeah.
our houses on a regular basis.
Well,
And it's the same with the aviation. We've seen it all. We've flown it all. I've flown a 747 with 100 birds of prey in. So there was no humans. And it
wow.
was, yeah, for a Middle East family.
I was going to say be the Middle East, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
so
Must be.
we've seen
That's
a
incredible.
variety of things over the years. Yeah,
Recall my sister was cabin crew for BA for about 10 years or so, quite a few years back. I remember she used to say, I remember she used to say she said she loved doing first class,
yeah,
especially compared to business class, sorry, first or economy, but
yeah,
not business. And she said the economy general people are just happy to be going where they're going. First class people knew they were privileged, but are grateful for it, however they made their wealth. But it was business class. Typically, people were given business
yeah,
people were given, and they wanted everything. It's
yeah,
like if they may not be paying for it, but they wanted everything. And I remember her
yeah,
saying the first was wonderful because the people just, although they were typically wealthy people. So no, that's fascinating.
yeah.
Blimey, so. Okay, I mean, what a fascinating businesses you have. What are some of the looking back? What are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome, Matt, in
I mean,
this
I
last?
think, COVID for everybody,
Yes.
from a
Yeah,
business
yeah.
point was huge. It was a big change. Nobody really knew what was going on. But
Yeah.
again, it was sort of, you and your little black book going, right, okay, we need to get this person, or, I had senior execs and board members saying, we need to shut down a factory in Milan tomorrow. I'm not doing it over Zoom or Teams. I want to go in person. And we were getting government sign off. Some days we were, some of the only aircraft that was coming in and out of the airports, because we were then flying them um, out just so that they could,
Yeah.
ultimately tell the staff, really sorry, we're mothballing the factory for, 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever,
Yeah,
until
yeah.
further notice. And I think it was paperwork that we'd never seen before. It was departments. Everybody was sort of a little bit unknown. There was speculation about one thing, but then in reality, other things were happening. I guess a very senior exec level people, they're people in power. They've done well somehow. Whether that be an education or whether they business growth. These are successful people. So they've all got friends that are also trying different things. Oh, actually, so and so got to this country by doing this. Do you think we can do it? And you'd look at it, well, no, that was fine because they were in a Schengen country and you're in the UK, so you can't do that. But oh, right, okay. But if I went to Dublin, could I then do that? And it was a bit like the Caribbean. The Caribbean ended up being the gateway for America, and a lot
Yeah.
of the big um, brands that we deal with in the States, the guys that were in the UK were going via the Caribbean as a week interim, so that they could still ultimately, it was for genuine reason. It wasn't nobody. It was not a holiday. It was for genuine corporate reason.
Yes.
And so we had to work with all sorts of departments and authorities to make sure that everything was all above board, but the country was still running.
Yes. Wowzers.
Um, so it was a huge challenge. I mean, even for the likes of the football clubs, getting them from A to B. And I think people even today, why does so and so team need to fly from London to,
Yeah.
the north? Well, actually, if you look at the security aspects, a bit like, when the royals move and, senior politicians, there's a lot of security that goes into these sort of things. This isn't just one person
Yeah.
on the move. This is teams of people, lots of planning, lots of risk. Um, and whether that be from a contagious health perspective of the players catching the virus, or whether it was the safety of them, getting from A to B. And I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of things that can't be divulged, shall we say, in logistics for the security of others. But I think, unfortunately, we're in that world now where everybody is a keyboard warrior and wants to sort of vent. And I think that's totally fine. And people need to have a voice, and everybody's voice should be heard. But I also think sometimes the full picture can't always be given for security reasons or whatever. And I think that can start having an impact. And the amount of times you see people, well, why have they flown there, or why have they taken that amount of people? But they don't understand actually what's happening behind the scenes,
Mm.
in order for, that team or that individual or that group or that board, to travel.
Mm.
It's hard, Everybody walks around with a mobile phone now, and I think for the world we are in, we were always told to believe what we saw. We can't now, with AI
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
things. People can get your voice, my voice, and next minute we can be interpreted, to be saying something that we've never said.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think we're at a really interesting time around the globe, because technology's advanced, humans and the way that humans use technology has advanced, and that comes with some fantastic, all the new world of AI. We've got to embrace it, but we've also got to be very, very mindful that we cannot we can't believe what we see or
No. No.
say.
Very true.
And
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be one of the biggest hurdles for business and for individuals, and on how we navigate, is it true or not?
Yeah. I agree. I very much agree. So, looking at looking back again, Matt, what would you say are some of the biggest things you've learned about growing a successful business?
Um, work together. No, nobody knows everything. I think, literally we've got where we have. I'm a small team of people, but in the summer we'll have over 100 people sort of out and about doing stuff on our behalf.
Well,
It's modular, because we can't do it all. Um, we can sort of glue as much as we can together, and but ultimately everybody's is a piece of the puzzle. And I think more than ever now, you cannot, as an individual or as a single company, do everything. And I think it really is that working together, on a global scale,
great.
which gets us to where we are. I don't. Where's growth these days? I mean, humans have become very expensive. Technology has become expensive and slightly volatile. From a, do you believe it? Can it do it? Does it do it? Does it do it as well as a human? But I think when you look at the cost of a human now, it's never been so high. The demands of a human, as a member of staff would be, is expensive, and the days of people just sort of turning up and doing it for experience or the love, those days seem to have gone. The amount of people that want hundreds a day from us just to do something that we would have done just to get our foot in the door or on the ladder, in that industry. And I think there's certainly a big sort of rally of self-entitlement that seems to be sort of coming through.
Hmm.
And again, I don't think it's certain sectors. I think it's across the board. I think, again, people read and see that so and so is doing something, but they've not really looked at the journey that that person's taken. They just presume that they will go. Nobody wants to come in at a junior level. Everybody wants to be senior or management, or and that comes at a cost. And I think it's fine while it goes well, but then if there's any problems, the knowledge base of a manager or the knowledge base of somebody in a senior role was always somebody that had got their badges along the way.
Mm,
And if you fast track too much, you've got actually a junior in a senior position, and that's fine until it goes wrong. And then that knowledge and experience just isn't there. And I
mm.
think that's probably one of the biggest concerns I think the industry has coming for it. As I say, not even in a specific sector to what we're in. I think across the board, you speak to, the legal world, the financial world. They're all seeing these sort of challenges now.
Yeah, yeah, no, very true, very true. And I think you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess from a business point of view, I've always looked at different individuals. I've looked at people locally to see what they're doing.
Yeah,
I've looked at as well as, I mean, you only have to look at, a Jeff Bezos and think, well, actually, if you drill down, what is Amazon? Amazon's a shop, but he's
yeah,
he's realised that actually nobody has got time to go to the shop and or multiple shops. So actually, the website is multiple shops coming to you. And I think you've got to admire these people, whether you love or hate these people. Actually, what they've done is really it's simple shopping, but look
yeah,
at where he is from a wealth perspective and a business perspective. Look at Apple. Actually when you look at like Nokia phones and where Ericsson and Nokia, everybody wanted that, and nobody had heard really of Apple. It was a computer that was in the odd school from an educational point of view. It was a different programming language, and then all of a sudden now, yes, okay, you could be an Android family and house, but actually, 9 out of 10 times, there will be some Apple product that is probably in your house, whether it be a laptop, a TV, or some of something of their world. And I think again, they've made it accessible. I used to program, like I said, in the days of going through lines and lines of code to make a pixel jump up and down and change color. Well, I've gone onto a MacBook laptop, and people are like, well, you're not going to miss the black screen and the coding. Well, no, because now, unfortunately, I haven't got time for that. I just need
yeah,
something that I click on and it works.
yeah, yeah,
And I think people have just, the ones that have done well tend to have been, it's simple things that have evolved with ultimately the human journey. So yes, the likes of your Steve Jobs, your Jeff Bezos. I always look to what they're doing. Look at what Tesla's doing. Elon Musk. All sorts of things that not just a car. Some people might just know him about the guy that does electric cars, but some people might know him about the battery storage that you might have in your house. With your solar panels, for example. Some people might know him for something completely different. So I think again, these people are they're not doing anything that we can't do, but they've just right time, right place.
yes,
Um,
absolutely, yeah,
Richard Branson, I look at him and look at again how he's done stuff. Some things have failed, some things, but from a transportation point of view, I've always looked, at the airline. He did the cruise ships. He's done, the money side, the financial side. So again, he's been in different. And then I look at, locally, you look at Lawrence Tomlinson, where L&T's
yeah,
gone. Again, as a northern, a guy that's been very, very successful in
yes,
multiple things, whether it be the motorsport, whether it be the nursing homes, and then the likes of Richard Harpin, another phenomenal guy. I have a lot of time for Richard. Ultimately, has now sold HomeServe, but again, got frustrated that couldn't get a plumber to your house, so ends
yeah,
up in theory getting everybody to sign up to, have a plumber on
absolutely,
standby, and has sold, HomeServe for £4.5 billion. Phenomenal, fair play.
absolutely,
And so you've got to, respect the journey and the blood, sweat, and tears that they've got, and I think from a northern perspective, we have got some really, really clever, successful individuals and companies
I agree.
in the north that have been fantastic. But as I say, I always like to look on a global scale and on a regional northern scale as well.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, they're some of the sort of many people really that I sort of look at and extract different things from, shall we say.
brilliant. And whether it's for them or others, do you have any favourite quotes or sayings about success or business that you catch yourself
One
using a
thing that
lot?
I always say to my guys, we are only as good as our last job.
Yep. Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter whether I did the King's coronation. We've done some phenomenal things around the world that will stick with me forever and will be fantastic. And always the questions are, oh, what have you done before? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, it doesn't matter whether I've chartered a jet 1,000 times this month, this year, or in 10 years. We are only as good as our last job. If we don't deliver what that client or company want us to do, then we're out. So we've got to get it right, and we've got to continue to get it right. And I think that for me is something that I say every time to all of my guys. It's irrelevant if we've done it before or if this is the first time. We're only as good as our last time that we did this.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and obviously, yeah, bang on. And any favourite books or podcasts about business or success that you can recommend?
I mean, I guess I just touched on Richard Harpin. I mean, he's pretty recently done How to Make a Billion in 9 Steps. That was
Yep.
one of I think he'd done a Mind for Business book as well before. I think obviously again, I think people can get into it and they can relate with how it's been written. I think, again, it covers the areas that sometimes people quite easily miss, but are vital to the next step, really.
Yeah, yeah. And just on the learning track a bit further, what would you say you learned about yourself throughout your journey so far, Matt?
Um, I mean, there's a way to do everything. I think that's what I've learned. We will get there eventually. Some things take time. Um, I think I think you've just got to have patience. And I think the reality, what I'm seeing now is getting a family balanced life. I could work 26 hours a day. No problem. I wake up every morning and I would say there's at least 25 to 30 emails, probably 10 are junk. The rest I need to read, I need to digest. It's time management. We know that we're all time poor. It's getting that balance, I think. If you can be the richest man in the graveyard very, very easy now.
So, well, that comes on to the next question, which would be interesting to get your views on. So, our definition of a true business in action coach, true business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without its owners. And I'm
Yep.
keen to know how your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tricky thing for us is, and I think there's a lot of times where I've thought, oh, actually, if I had another member of staff, they could have done that today instead of.
Yes.
I think the problem that we have as a company is that because of who we're dealing with, they want to talk to the owner or the boss. So that's the one of our biggest bottlenecks as a business. Because they've got the money, they want to jump straight to the top. Now, it might be that a member of my team is 10 times more knowledgeable in an area than I am, but it's still got to go via me because the comfort blanket for them is that I'm the owner, I'm the boss, I'm the one at the top from an accountability perspective. And that's one of the hardest things that we have found. So a lot of our things are how we structure our behind the scenes so that it can still come from my voice, but my knowledge base can't be in everything. And it's hard, you know. When was the last time my phone didn't ring on a family holiday? Can't can't even remember, you know. And people say, well, can't you just turn it off? No, because these clients would go somewhere else
Yeah.
because they've got the money to go to the top. You know, if they've got the money, they will get the best car or they will get the best flight or whatever. And I think if they want to engage with you as a company to do it, they want to make sure that you are across it. And a lot of my conversations are, don't worry, I know you've not heard from me, so and so's dealing with it, but I'm aware and it's not going to be a problem. And I think that is one of the biggest battles I've got to try and overcome. And I don't think there is an easy way of doing that because there is only sort of me in that respect at the top. And I think if I was to wind the clock back to 26 years ago, when I launched the company, I would probably have taken on somebody at the same time with as a business partner, so that ultimately you could have had two or three people that all had a share within that company. That all because at the moment, whilst my brother is an integral part of our day-to-day operations with the financials and the things like that, he the clients will still 9 out of 10 times call me, and I think that's the tricky bit. Whereas if I had launched a company with three individuals or five individuals, all with equal share and equal responsibility, that would be something that I would probably find easier now to fix than 26 years down the line.
Yeah, I really get that, and I'm really conscious of how specialist your business is and how your
Yeah,
specialist your clients are. I think, but you probably won't be surprised to find I do work with lots of people that feel like that as well.
yeah,
And I think if it helps at all, I think two key things. One is um, what is it? I totally agree. It's more difficult with the existing clients who have had, have
yeah,
known you for a long time. But certainly for new clients, we can teach them a new way. And I think I would suggest for you, especially, is given you've built up the trust over time, it is quite possible to. And I've done this with a number of clients in not exactly the same space. It's very, very specialist what you do. But over time, work with our clients and say, look, trust me. If they trust
mm,
you, you said trust a big thing. Trust me, I can I can deliver a service better for you, or we can, whether it's through my team rather than it's just me, because I'm only one person.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I totally get if the king of some Middle Eastern countries ringing you up saying, "I want you now to do this," you're going to do
yeah,
it. Totally get it. But I think it's moving towards it. It's freeing ourselves from the belief that we have to be there,
yes,
at least get to somewhere on the journey, if that makes sense. It's
yeah.
not,
Oh no,
you
very
know,
much so.
but I worked with a number of different people. I say not quite as specialist as you, but and as I say to them, I say, look, you know, if you, great example you mentioned him earlier, Richard Branson. We all feel Richard is there, even though we know he's not driving the train or flying the plane. But there's a
Exactly.
feeling that he's all
Yeah.
over that business, if that makes sense. And that
Yeah,
if I had a
absolutely.
problem, and I think he's a great example of how you can create businesses where his personality is in it without it
Yeah.
obviously clearly being everywhere. So no, absolutely fascinating. So looking forward then, Matt, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, every day it changes. I think we're the economy is in an interesting state.
Yep.
So that has impact on certain areas. I think, if we look at the music side of the business, festivals aren't selling out. There's lots more festivals and they're not selling out. There's only so many humans that can
Yes.
go. And then probably out of that, there's only so many humans that can afford to go to more than one, or
Yep.
to multiple, shall we say. The infrastructure cost of putting on a show, a festival, an act, like we're all aware now, the train tickets gone higher, the hotel costs are higher, the plane fares gone higher. A music act, it costs more to put that music act on,
Yes.
but at the same take, the revenue stream at a festival has been hugely reduced. Ticket prices obviously in the news quite frequently
Yep.
about how much a ticket is. Um, and I think it's tough. So I think the music sector will certainly have a storm or two to weather. Um, because it will all depend. People love to go to a music show to have a good time. People will tend to find money to have a good time. But there's only so many times they can
Yeah.
do that from a financial point of view. And I think we're seeing different demographics. The way that we access music is different. We've got we're not we're not buying albums from acts as such now. We're buying tracks. So if you say to somebody with a phone, especially I would say the up to 21, 24 year olds, they've got a hip hop act, they've got a drum and bass act, they've got a classical track, they've got all sorts on their phone. So there's not sort of a certain genre that they would have liked or they've invested in. So that's hard to program that festival because if you had all those on one stage, it wouldn't
Yep.
flow.
Yep.
But actually, your audience have become um, aware and have the accessibility of all these different sounds. So I
Yep.
think the music industry's got some real interesting navigation ahead. Um, what we're seeing, obviously the cost of beer's gone up and the cost of, merchandise has gone up. So, what are people then spending once they're there, or have they spent all their money getting the ticket once they're there? So I think there'll be some interesting stuff on the music side. From a budget point of view and reliability of funds that have come in and out. I think the way that we look at music talent now, that sort of legendary status, it's hard as a new musician to become a legend. Again, well, naturally, if you look at the acts that are selling out and are doing really good big numbers, it tends to be the acts that have been around for quite a considerable amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So again, you then say, well, what's happening with the younger demographic? Are they not going out? And I was talking to somebody that's got a nightclub in Leeds, and they said, well, half of them haven't even been to a pub. They've come from their halls or their accommodation straight at 2 in the morning to the nightclub, and
Yeah.
then they don't drink anything, and they whinge that they've had to pay 20 quid to get in, but I'm making nothing on the bar, and then they want all the DJs to play. So I think the entertainment of how we are going to be entertained as humans is going to change and evolve. And I think who knows what the outcome of where that's going to sort of go. I think the aviation, there's a lot of change in aviation. Um, Private aviation costs have come down. The accessibility of private aviation is now better. We're seeing
Yep.
families that would have never even considered to go private are now flying private with us. And these
Yep.
aren't millionaires. These are just people that are sharing the costs. One pays one way, one pays the other. Um, they dilute the cost. Everybody goes on the plane. And all of a sudden they're like, well, it's ended up being the same, but less hassle than getting two
Yep.
flights or three flights or being cancelled or whatever. So I think, again, we will see a big transition with the aviation, accessibility of areas.
Yep.
Um, People always want to know why, DJs are getting on a private jet. Well, how can you do two different countries in one day using a
Yeah.
commercial airline? It would take you longer. It all goes back to time versus
Yes.
money and
Yep.
versus accessibility. And I think these are the big things that are going to almost make the decisions moving forward. So I think our two biggest changing sectors will be artist needs and aviation needs,
Right.
because, as I say, I think of the way that the world is sort of transforming, and it
Yep.
doesn't matter whether you're sat in Australia, Asia, or the UK. This is affecting globally at different times.
Yeah.
So everybody will see different waves, but the reality is, work hard, play hard. I think that is another saying that quite a lot of my world sort of resonate from. And I think even the people, off the back of COVID, those people have realized that you can have lots of money in the bank, but you can't take it with you. So I think, and if we have to stop doing something tomorrow, I think the awareness now is far greater on what is potentially around the corner.
Yeah.
Um, so I think a lot of people are like, blow it. we'll go and have a nice holiday, or we'll go to that event, but we'll go VIP to that event because we
Yes.
don't have to queue, or we might get a meal before we watch the concert, or, and I think if you are backs to the wall and you are work, 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 you need something to cheer you up to actually
Yeah.
work out why we're doing what we're
Got to
doing.
be a reason.
Yeah,
Whatever the reason is, there's got to be a reason.
yeah, yeah.
100%. Brilliant. And final question: what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that, Matt?
Um, well, I would just say keep all options open.
Yep.
I think there can be huge educational pressure to do school, to do college, to do
Yeah.
university. Now, I'm not saying that certain roles don't need a doctor in something and you shouldn't do your PhD or your master's. But what we have seen a lot in the last few years is people that come to us say, have you got any jobs? And you get their CV. And on paper, these people are tenfold the educational training that the likes of me and my team are. But they've got no real hands-on knowledge because they've been squirreled into that book or that lecture or whatever. And I guess I'm slightly biased on the basis that I didn't go to university and I went down more the hands-on approach. I
Yep.
would just say to people, don't, the pressure that you see on the kids, you must get these grades to get into there or
Yeah, I
to
agree.
do this. If
Yep.
you don't get those grades, you won't succeed and all the rest of it. I'm a firm believer that if you want to do something and you put your hand and heart and your head all in line, you can get there, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have to, it's not got to just be the educational route. I
Yeah.
think what works for some doesn't always work for others. But I genuinely feel now that there's such a pressure on the educational route, and some people are being priced out and thinking that they can't achieve that goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would genuinely say to an 18-year-old, go and get your hands dirty, go and learn. It's not all about the money. The money comes after. Whilst you're, on free board and lodgings or whatever, crack on, go watch, go shadow, go learn, but learn on the job rather than from a textbook because things are very, very different. And I don't think that applies to all sectors. We
Yeah.
all wouldn't want to go see a surgeon or a doctor that's, just learn on the job. There's certain sectors that definitely, definitely do need more academic and educational background. But I think that there's such pressure that we see now on people, and you speak to them and say, "Well, why have you done all this if you want to do this?" Oh, well, I thought that's what I had to do.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it isn't.
Agreed.
And I think for me, that would be where I really, really say to people, and I give university lectures still to this day, and go to colleges and things like that. Follow your heart. You like you get you do get multiple chances. Like, don't just put all your irons in one fire. Give it a go. Try different things. Don't just think, right, I've made that choice, I've got to do it. Have a look around, bounce off other people,
Brilliant.
speak to other adults, and parents or siblings, that are in there, and get feedback from them. But I think people don't talk enough. People can get very squirreled into reading online things of what they should do, and I don't think that that's always the right way to
Yeah.
go.
No, very sound advice. Well, Matt, it's been fascinating talking to you and really appreciate your time. And it'd be great to swing by another 6, 12 months and just see how things are developing
Yeah.
for you. For anyone that would like to contact you or the needs group, what would be the best way of doing that?
Yeah, so if it's well, as I say, if you go to theneedsgroup.com, our website, everything's on there. Ultimately, depending on what bit you're interested in or need assistance with, it's pointless talking to the team about a plane if you want to talk about getting into the music industry
Yep.
and vice versa. So I would say, yeah, head to the website, everything's there. Dropping us an email if we can help with anything. As I say, our biggest sector of growth is the aviation side, and Yorkshire, bizarrely. That is where we've seen our biggest increase. So we would love to help people on our doorstep, but we are global. And as I say, the email is always on, the telephone is always on,
Brilliant.
and the kettle can always be on as well.
Brilliant. Well, I've got a couple of people that might well be interested, so I'll have a chat with them. But
No, that's
but
fine. Yeah.
as I say, thank you so much for your time today.
All good, thank you.
Thank you.